Hello, salam, shalom, namaste, sasrikal, aloha, hola, ciao, bonjour, buna, privyet, mabuhay, and jean dobre. It's really, really good to be with you all again, and I know you'll be so not only happy you have joined us, but grateful that you have joined us today because we have a very special guest with us today, and that is Cara Lockwood, who is a USA Today best-selling author of There's No Good Book for This. Welcome, Cara.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so wonderful to be on your show. I think you do such good work encouraging people to live their best lives, and I love that.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm just so happy that you have joined us because well, we're going to talk about what you're here to talk about, but it's just such an important thing for us to talk about. And I want you actually, I want you to tell us more about who you are and what your book is all about.
Yeah, so I'm a USA Today bestselling novelist. I've written more than 35 romance novels, twice on the USA Today bestseller list, and two of them are movies, a Lifetime movie and a Hallmark movie. So I'm used to writing happily ever afters. But in 2023, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So I went on a detour in my life fighting breast cancer. Thankfully, I'm now in remission, but I wrote a book about it called There's No Good Book for This. But I wrote one anyway, The Irreverent Guide to Crushing Breast Cancer. I use a lot of humor in the book. I talk about the emotional journey, how you sort of build yourself up for this fight because it is a fight. But I think few people are really ready for it. Cancer sort of crashes into your life unannounced, uninvited. And I'm hoping this book sort of gives people, a guide to try to get their arms around it. Each chapter ends with a pep talk because I think we need tons of pep talks in this journey. So I'm really hoping to encourage people that even when they think they can't tackle something really big, that they can.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, there's just so many important things in what you just shared and what we will dig into. It's cancer, I mean, as a whole, there's so many different kinds of cancer and so complex, but with all of that, um, I bet there's almost no one among our listeners who doesn't have someone in their life or maybe themselves who haven't had to deal with cancer, whether it's breast cancer or some other kind of cancer. And with women, breast cancer is, of course, such a huge
Yeah.
issue. And there's so many layers to it, not just with the treatment, not just with the mental health, as you have sort of hinted at, but there's also, I don't know, I hope it's getting better, but I know like for my aunt, when she received news of the breast cancer, one of her big concerns was just the stigma around
Hmm.
it and what will happen. Like, will her breasts need to be removed or
Yeah.
God forbid
Yeah.
something like that? And then, what happens in terms of, when her physical appearance changes, how will people perceive her, this and that. And so there was just like so many different anxieties and unknowns and tensions that it really helps to be able to talk about it with someone who knows
Yeah.
what you're going through.
Absolutely. And you touch on such important points. First of all, breast cancer is on the rise across all women groups. It's on the rise for younger women under the age of 50. I was diagnosed at 50. For Asian Americans, it's they have one of the highest rates of new breast cancer among different racial groups. And so it's just on the rise among a lot of women, and so I think it's very important to talk about. Firstly, I just want to say that early detection is the key to survival rates, treatments, having less invasive treatments as well. So for anyone listening, if you've been putting off that mammogram, go get it if you're over the age of 40 or 45. So definitely get those regular mammograms. That's the key to having successful treatment and handling it. For those who know someone who's diagnosed or who has been diagnosed, it's such a heavy burden because I think cancer affects all kinds of cancer affects people, but breast cancer especially I think hits women in a particular way because it does affect how we feel about ourselves, how we look, how we think about ourselves as women. I think breasts are such an important part, at least for me, of how I felt about myself. Not just, how I looked, but also, I nursed two daughters. They were an essential part of how I saw myself as a mother, how, I saw myself as a woman. And, when the doctors told me I would need a mastectomy, I had to do a lot of, feeling and talking to my counselor about, how I felt about that. It's a very serious thing for a lot of women, and it's something that I think we don't talk about as much because the doctors are talking about saving your life
Yeah.
as they should, but the mental weight of making that decision to do away with an essential part of yourself, at
Yeah.
least how you feel. I felt that way. It's a journey. It really is a journey to sort of come to peace with that.
Yeah. And it's interesting, the things that we as human beings
Yes,
can hesitate to talk to each other about, even our loved ones.
yes,
When I'm just thinking back to my aunt, it so happens that I was the one who took her to her doctor's appointment the day
oh, good for
that she
you.
was going to be
Oh,
getting the results. I didn't know
yeah,
what was happening
yeah.
at all. And like for her, it was just another routine, as far as I knew, a routine
Hmm.
that she was going to just talk to the doctor. And when she came back, like, because I didn't go in the room, I was out in the waiting room. And when
Sure.
she came back, I noticed maybe a little something on her face, like a
Hmm.
interesting
Yeah,
look, but
yeah,
she was like, no, everything's fine, let's go home. And actually didn't tell me anything.
yeah.
Um, and I didn't know for months and months after,
Oh,
you
oh,
know. Hey, thanks for tuning into this episode. Hope you're getting value out of it. For your information, this episode has been sponsored by the Happiness 101 program. Are you a change maker, coach, trainer, or healer? Are chains of fear holding you back from making the impact and income you desire? Using a unique combination of positive psychology and the spiritual wisdom of our most effective change makers, the Happiness 101 program helps you break through your limiting beliefs and manifest the abundance and success you desire with fun and ease. Interested? Book a free Happiness 101 exploration call with me, your happiness expert, Samia Bano. Just use my online calendar link in the show notes. Now, back to the show.
it's
And
so hard. It's so hard. It's so scary, I think, in that moment for women. I know for me when I heard the news, um, I personally just went into a white room, like, of sort of panic and denial. I didn't even, it was so shocking because despite the fact that I had a abnormal mammogram and went in for a biopsy, I just wasn't expecting bad news. And I think, the science proves that even when the research and statistics tell us to expect bad news, we still don't really want to. We don't want to anticipate it very much. So I think that's why it can throw us for a loop so often. I know it's very difficult for a lot of people to sort of wrap their arms around that diagnosis. And so I really feel for you and your aunt because I can see how she just wasn't ready to share it, but I also see how you would want to know, that there's something going on so that you can help. And I think it's really important for people to keep that in mind, that I think sometimes we don't want to burden people with bad news. I know I certainly didn't when I was diagnosed, and it felt like I was exploding a bomb in people's days. Just a bad news, and so sometimes I just felt really reluctant to do that, and yet at the same time, I think it's so very important to share the news. For one, because when you're diagnosed, you're going to need that support system. You're going to need people to know so they can help you, and two, so that you don't, disturb those friendships and those relationships by potentially withholding a secret that can hurt them later. That they might feel betrayed or or kept at arm's length, even when you feel like you have their best interests at heart, which you do because you love them. They might take it a different way. So I think it's important to try to share, even if it's difficult news, even if you're not sure you're ready to share. I think letting more people in will only help you, and ultimately help them too.
Yeah, take your I take your wisdom. That's
Yes.
uh
And I
it,
know it's so hard too, because there's no one can. We're all human and we're all messy humans, and we're just doing the best we can, in very difficult, trying circumstances a lot of the time. Nobody has a playbook for how to best do this. We're all winging it, as we go.
it's true. And just to remember that we are indeed all winging it and to
Yes.
give each other some grace because I
Yes. So
know one of
important.
the things that can be difficult is when you share something with other people that is, of course, really important to share, but at the same time, it's something difficult and challenging for you yourself. There is, that risk that you take of the person you're sharing with not reacting very well to
Yeah.
the news, and so you
Yes.
have to carry that potentially extra burden of then also taking care of that person who
Right.
in the moment like
Right.
feeling shocked and not able
Exactly.
to, entirely handle what you've just shared with them. And so,
Yeah. Well, it's actually why I think humor can be so important. And you might not think humor has a place here because it's so sad and so serious and so somber. But I'll share a story with you about me breaking the news to my youngest daughter at the time, and she was 15. She was a sophomore in high school, very, very focused on her academics and all of her clubs and her activities and cross country. And, she was doing a lot of things, very, very busy, as all, high school sophomores are. When I broke the news to her, she just instantly started crying. And I just felt like I had failed her as a mother. I'm not supposed to be sick, especially not when she's 15, maybe when she's 50, but I'm supposed to let her have the drama, at 15, not me have the drama. And it was such a low moment for me, but I often lean on humor in difficult situations because it helps me sort of get some of my power back and also distracts and divert often. So I let her, I was trying to comfort her the best I could, but I also knew that she had a lot of nerves and anxiety about applying to college. And even though she was just a sophomore, she was already thinking of her college essay, and she had been talking about, like, what am I even going to write about? And so I cracked a joke and I said, well, I just gave you the best topic for your college essay. You're welcome. And even she had to laugh a little, even through her tears, and say, "Oh, Mom, what are you saying?" But, sometimes I think humor can help us.
Mm.
Not make light of a situation, I don't think, but say it's okay not to let it be so heavy that you can't help, you can't lift it. Like you can have some levity, have some humor, and maybe dark moments that can just help it be a little easier to manage, a little easier to carry.
Yes, yes. And actually, I mean, there's obviously a appropriate time. Um, there's that element, but also, um, I mean, no one approach will work with everyone.
Yeah, right. Of
However,
course. Of course.
however,
Of course.
giving some leeway for that
Yeah.
kind of difference among people
Yes.
and what they need. Um, I find also that when we allow ourselves to use humor or find the humor in a situation,
Mhm.
it really helps because when we think of something as a difficult situation, I mean, in a there is a certain reality to that
Yeah.
perspective.
Yes, of
It
course.
is also at the same time a perspective.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so if we can allow ourselves to shift the perspective a little bit in some ways
Hmm.
and find some of the humor in the situation, maybe even find something to be grateful for in the
Yes.
situation, find some light in
Yeah.
the situation, it begins to create a something um, that you can hold on to,
Yes.
that
Yeah. It
like
helps ground you. Yeah.
grounding can help create hope, can help give you encouragement to keep moving forward. I mean, there's just so much that you can gain from allowing yourself that shift in perspective.
Yeah. Well, perspective is so important in dealing with any kind of major health issue, but I think especially cancer. I know most people frame it like you should be fighting. You should be fighting. I think that, but I also don't think the burden should be on the patient, to fight. But I do think perspective is so, so important. When I was very lucky to have a fantastic counselor to help me work through some of my big emotions around cancer. But one of the first things she told me was cancer doesn't get to decide. So
Mm,
that helped shift my perspective from, I felt like just I was at the, mercy of cancer. Like cancer was, getting all these appointments, and cancer was deciding my treatment, and cancer was, upending my life. But she really helped me see that I still had control. I had control over how I felt. I had control over saying yes to treatment or no to treatment. I had the control over who I told, when I told, how I told them. You know, um, all of these things are in your control. So the cancer isn't driving the bus. It's not, making all the decisions for you. And so that perspective is so important in trying to get your arms around it and trying to, figure out how you're going to fight it, because, thinking that it's in control and it's driving is a completely different, concept from,
Yeah.
thinking that you are making the decisions and that you still have your agency, which is so very important.
Yes, that is such an excellent insight because I think feeling out of control creates its own trauma. I mean,
Absolutely.
whatever the challenges of the actual
Yes.
cancer in your body are, but the feeling out of control creates its own trauma. Ah,
Yeah, and I mean, I would say that that sentiment works for a lot of things.
yes.
Trauma doesn't get to decide. Abuse doesn't get to decide. Like, they don't get to decide. You are still in control of your own self and your feelings and, who you are and what decisions you decide to make. And it's still your life to live regardless of whether, these other things have intruded, and brought challenges into your life. You still have the agency. You still have a measure of control over certain things. So it's so important to remember, just to have, the feeling of, control in your life. I think it's so important.
Yes, I think that's a really, really important lesson for us to learn. Thankfully, I've never had to deal with something like cancer in my life, but
Yeah,
I've experienced other kinds of challenges and trauma in my life. And this issue of, feeling out of control and that creating its own trauma is something that I've experienced
yeah,
in a different
yeah.
context,
Sure,
And
absolutely. Many of us
so,
have. Yeah,
yeah, and it's been such a important life lesson to learn. And I think that's one of the blessings that, we can experience when we go through any kind of significant challenge in our life is learning these important life lessons. And the good thing is once you learn the life lesson,
yeah.
it's there to serve you for the rest of your life.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I would say that about dealing with cancer too. I think when it comes to processing your trauma or dealing with something large in your life like cancer, I know for me when I was first diagnosed, I was like, there's no way I can handle this.
Mm.
Like, there's absolutely no way I can handle this, and I was just in such a spin about it. I just felt like there's no way I can how can I do this? Like I was about to release a book. I had actually three kids in high school at the time. And I was like, I can't do it. Like, I just can't. And, talking to my counselor, I came to the realization that it's not that I can't, it's that I didn't want to,
Yeah.
and that there's such a difference in those two statements. It's like I did not want to. I didn't want to handle like something, so awful and terrible and all the treatments and, all the uncertainty. I just didn't want it. Like, I just did not want it. But that little shift too between can't and don't want to is a completely, help me get to a place like I can do it. I just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And I think it's so pivotal when dealing with something monumental in your life. Those little phrases can just shift your perspective and help feel like, oh wait, maybe I can handle this. Like, I just don't want to handle it. It's different.
Yeah.
It's a different way to think about it.
Yeah, and it makes sense that you didn't want to handle it in the
Right.
moment because who would want to handle something like
Who
that?
wants chemo or wants surgery? Nobody
Yeah,
wants it. We don't want
exactly.
it.
Yes. But it's like I
Yeah.
can do it. So
You can do it. Yeah. And another piece of that too, at least for me, is sort of letting go of blame too,
Mm,
because in there's so much second guessing when it comes to something like cancer. I was kind of on time for my mammogram, but I was like 3 months late. So then I was like, have I hindered my survival rate because I was 3 months late? Should I have done something differently? Should I have worn different deodorant? Should I have, eaten a better diet, and less processed foods? Like, all of the things that run through your mind constantly. And, some people, they're well meaning, but they're also like just asking those questions. What kind of deodorant did you use? Does this run in your family? Was there something, I read a study that said, who knows what, might increase your chances of breast cancer. Like, did you do those things? And
Mm,
I think, only for me, I unpacked all of that. I was like, is this something I did? You know, and I had to let go of that because because you ask those questions like, why me? Why did I get cancer? What did I do to deserve this? Did I, not go to church enough? Was I not, I mean, you ask all of these questions of yourself, like, did I do something? Was I bad? Am I being punished? And I really had to let go of that and get to a place of, instead of why me, why not me? Like,
mm,
it's not something I did. It's just something that happened.
mm,
And now I have to face it and deal with it. But it's not a punishment. It's
mm.
not a result of something I did. I didn't want cancer. I didn't ask for cancer. I tried to live my life as a good person. I don't think it was punishment. But I had to get to that stage, and
Yeah,
I think we all do when dealing with something like this. I think it's so important to forgive ourselves and not blame ourselves for things that are really largely out of our control.
yeah,
This is not something that we brought on ourselves.
yeah.
So,
This is another aspect of our human psychology that
yes,
I
yes,
I used to do this kind of self-blame, judge
yes, of
myself
course,
all the time as well, and that
of
now,
course.
though that I have learned to be kinder to myself and more compassionate to myself, now I'm like, oh, why did I ever do that to
Right, right, exactly. I mean, think about it this way: like, you would never tell your friend or aunt or mother or cousin, like, that they were to blame for cancer. Like, I mean, that's no, of course you wouldn't. You would think, what a horrible tragedy that happened for no reason, for no good reason. So I think we should feel the same way about ourselves. That be as kind to yourself as you would to your friend, and we'll all be better off for that.
Yeah, you know what you said about like no one ever asks for cancer. I mean, that really reminds me of something because, sometimes it might be that I may have done this or engaged in
Mhm.
some behavior that
Sure,
or the other
risky behavior. Sure,
contributed to some kind of
sure.
increased risk for developing something like the cancer, etc. But even if I did engage in any
Hmm.
risky behavior, that
Sure,
still doesn't mean that I was asking for cancer. I mean,
right.
it's like we're all doing the very best we can with what we know and what we have in the moment. It, you know, and so whatever choices I made in the past, I made in the past with that understanding of I was doing my best in those moments with what
Yeah,
I knew and what I had. And I never asked for cancer. So it's certainly,
right.
you cannot, I mean, so like for me, that's such a important thing to remind myself of because I actually learned this lesson in the context of when I was getting training as a crisis counselor for
Hmm.
survivors of sexual violence.
Yeah,
And there's oftentimes this blame game that happens in that context as well.
sure.
And one of the things that like we learned in the training, and I took it to heart, was no one asks to be abused.
Right.
No one asks for abuse. No one invites
Mhm.
abuse. And so there's no
Absolutely.
excuse for someone to abuse you. No one can say, I mean, there's so many people who say, oh, it's your fault because you did this,
Right.
you did that.
Right.
But no one asks for abuse, no one invites abuse. And so there's no excuse for that kind of blame,
Absolutely.
judgment. And same is true for something like cancer.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's squarely cancer's fault, not our fault. You know, nobody asked for it. Even if it runs in your family, people are still very surprised to get it. I mean, as human beings, we don't anticipate bad news. We're actually even the most pessimistic of us are still pretty optimistic about our chances of not developing cancer. So you're 100% right. Even if smoked and maybe just did other risky behaviors, you did not bring upon cancer on yourself. Like it's cancer's fault, not your fault. So keeping that in mind is really important.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that. I want to make a t-shirt out of it. It's cancer's
Yes.
fault, not my fault.
Cancer's fault. Exactly. Exactly. And it's also very important to get a hold of that negative self-talk and self-blame when you're dealing with something like cancer, because a lot of the research shows that your attitude about how treatments will do for you. Like, for example, my surgeon told me that people who feel like the surgery will go well, they typically recover well with fewer complications. And there's a lot of research about that. So if you were just really obsessed with blaming yourself and the negativity, and then maybe even thinking like you deserve it and this isn't going to work out well for you, then it might be a self-fulfilling prophecy in which that does happen. So it's so important to get a hold of those negative thoughts, to show yourself some grace and love in this period so that you can believe you will get well, that you deserve to get well, and then you'll be surprised about how well the treatments will actually work for you once you, I think, root out that negativity and that negative self-talk that might be holding you back in more ways than you know. So it's so important.
I it's I was actually doing an interview for this show with another guest who is health and wellness expert. I've actually done multiple interviews with health and wellness experts, and one of the lessons that I've been learning from from them is at the like if you look at just the level of your physiology and how disease develops or what allows it to
Mm-hmm.
thrive in your body, like when you look at root causes, one of the root causes for most disease is stress.
Yep.
And so there's so many different ways in which your body can get stressed. And
Mm-hmm.
one of those ways is your mental, emotional state.
Yeah.
And again, this is not to blame, but to empower, because once you realize and recognize, oh, the way I think and the feelings that I allow to myself to sit with and sit in, um, these are things that are having an impact on my body, on my health, on
Yeah.
the well-being of myself. And these are things that I can learn to control and change in a more positive direction. It's just so like I found it so empowering as as a life lesson. Uh, I mean, you could again go down that rabbit hole of blaming, shaming, judging
Sure.
yourself and being like, oh no, oh, I did this, I did that. But no, no, no. Again, this is not about blaming, shaming, judging, but it's about empowering yourself with the knowledge of how to help yourself both in this moment, but also for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and I think I love too how we're talking about separating the blame. So you shouldn't blame yourself also for being stressed and blame yourself for the negative talk. Like that's an endless circle.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important for people to give themselves permission to for that important self-care, for treating yourself well, for dealing with stress, because I think sometimes we just dismiss it like I'm stressed, but I've got too much to do. I'm too busy to deal with the stress, or I'm too busy to, I'll deal with that negative self-talk later. It's not really causing any damage right now, and I've got too much to do. I've got the
Wow.
kids to worry about, and my job to worry about, and so I think it's actually a good excuse just to slow down, do that important self-care,
Mm.
whether that's meditation or seeking counseling, making time for yourself to really deal with some of these, stressors in your life.
Yeah.
It's really interesting about cancer because sometimes cancer can just wipe the slate clean of the things that you've been sort of obsessed with or worried about, and it pushes them down the priority list. If you've been worried about what your coworker thinks about you, or, the neighbor's new car, or, some of the things that we can sort of run circles, in our minds about, maybe something posted on social media that's bothering you. Those things can kind of get pushed down on the priority list because you're dealing with cancer now.
Yeah.
So in some ways it can help you get clear about the important things to deal with, and
Yes.
that's like the stress and the things that have been bothering you that maybe in the end scheme of things aren't that earth shattering.
Yes.
So it helps you get your priority order, which can be one of the very few
Yeah.
upsides. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Might be one of the few upsides, but it's a
Yes.
huge upside.
Yes.
Huge upside. You actually just made me think of one of my other aunts
Mm-hmm.
who thankfully didn't have cancer, but she had another diagnosis, very serious in its own way. And I remember that, she was one of these people who, I mean, she was just a very traditional lady, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I
Right.
mean that in the way of she really cared about upholding all the different
Mm-hmm.
traditions
Mm-hmm.
and meeting the expectations that, society had of
Of
her
course,
as a
sure.
woman, as a mother, as a wife, and so on and so forth, and so she had a very full life. She had a very busy life. There was
Mm-hmm.
always something to do. I mean, of course, wasn't getting enough rest and this
Of
and that.
course, sleep
But
always comes last. Sure.
yes, and the thing was that, and she was by no means the only lady in my family, or in our society who put themselves at the bottom of their own list.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, when you, like, let's say if I went and said to her, this was in the past. Thankfully, things have taken a positive turn. But in the past, if I would go and say to her, you're so tired, please just sit, relax for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, no, no, no. Then all of this work, when will it get done? Who
Right.
will do
I have
it?
to do the
It
dishes
has
now.
to do
Sure.
it. And there's this sense of responsibility and urgency to everything and or so much. But when she got her diagnosis, and it was something that, like, literally, like, she started to lose her energy, like physically, like her body got more weak, and she just didn't have the energy um to to be as active as she was used to being. And so literally her body in some ways forced her to slow down,
Yeah.
forced her to
Yes.
even stop doing so much
Yes.
of what she was used to doing. And I think it took her a while of just literally not being physically able to do this, that, and everything. And then seeing that when she couldn't do it, the most important thing still got done.
Yeah.
And there
Yes.
were things that didn't get done, but life still went on.
And it was fine. Yeah.
You
The
know,
world
it
didn't end.
was
Yeah.
overall fine. And I think, that it really took that really going through that really difficult time in her life for her to be able to shift that perspective and have I think, in some ways more realistic perspective on what was really, really important in life
Yeah.
for her. And so now, thankfully, she's doing much better, not just in terms of her condition, the whatever the diagnosis was, but in terms of just her being a happier person, a less busy person.
Yes. Yeah, and it's such a good point you raised because so many of us I think feel like there's so many societal expectations, but I think we don't necessarily know like how very serious they are. Do like your aunt is a perfect example of someone who just really worked like probably her hands to the bone trying to make everything just perfect, and then when she had to take a step back, it was
Like
fine.
even little things like,
Yeah,
the if you open a cupboard, it has to be just
right.
this way, like everything has to be neat and tidy and I mean little things like the way the
Yeah,
towels folded, because if it's not folded in just the right way, then
right.
all the towels won't
Yes.
fit and look messy. And I'm like, and then you start worrying about these things. So like if someone
Right.
else comes in to help you, and I'm
Right.
like, I'll fold the towels for you, but she's then like, oh no,
They're not going to fold
you
them
don't know
right.
how to do it right, or
Sure.
you're not doing it right. So
Sure. Yes. And it's so funny in the book I talk about this about like sort of letting go of the things that, we've sort of been obsessed with. What sheet folding, towel folding, doing the dishes a certain way, cooking a certain way, cooking certain things a certain way. Because once you let other people help, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be the way you did it, but it's actually going to be okay. And it's important for you not to worry about those small things because you have to put all of your energy into fighting cancer. Like you don't have time to worry about the towels in the cupboard. Like you really have to focus on the cancer and beating the cancer, and that's your job right now. And so other people can pitch in, and later when you're well, you can come back and refold all the towels, if you want, or you can realize like it's not a big deal. And the worry, a lot of these worries that we have, it's about like what other people will think of us, and that's like been so like internal for us, like since we were kids, about like how other people are going to see our home if it's not cleaned in a certain way, or the dinner if it's not prepared in a certain way. But then
yes,
when these things are done differently, then we see actually the sky didn't fall. No one wrote a bad review on Yelp about our home. Everything
yeah.
was fine. Nobody shunned our friendship or our family. Like we're all fine because those things that we were very concerned about. Actually, maybe other people weren't as concerned. You know.
But there's this other side, because I was actually having this conversation with one of my people. This was like maybe 2, 3 weeks ago, where um actually, so with this person that I was speaking to, I was talking her through um her mindset around like her in her family, her sister um had been engaged, and the engagement fell through. It
Mhm.
created a bit of let's say drama and
Yeah.
gossip in the
Sure.
community. Right?
Sure.
Sometimes people do care and they will say things, but the interesting thing that we like, I'm all about. let's find the light, like what's something you can learn from
So
this?
important.
What's something
Yeah.
you can be grateful for in this situation? And one of the things that we found to be really grateful for in this situation is that after experiencing all of this bad drama, like when her sister's engagement fell through and all the gossip, and so she now this person now is like, I will never gossip about anyone like this again.
Yeah,
It's been so traumatic for me, for my sister, for our family.
sure.
I was like, that's a great blessing for you to recognize that this is something that this kind of behavior is something that you engaged in yourself with regards to other people. And
Hmm.
now you've become conscious of how much it can actually hurt and that you won't do it again to someone else. That is an amazing thing to be grateful for. And
What a gift. Yeah.
and so it's like sometimes, yeah, people can be judgy, but you know what? Let those people go if like it's okay.
Yeah.
Let them be
Yeah.
judgy. But
Yes.
here, you can learn a lesson of, hey, you can learn a different lesson from that. And you don't have to take
Exactly.
their judgment and do everything that they want
Exactly.
you to do.
Exactly. Yeah, you can decide yeah, learn a life lesson that can help others, and then there's a ripple effect from that, so that you can shine light and be a bright light instead of a taker of light. So I mean, I think that's great. I think it's also important to know as well that even the gossipers have sort of short attention spans as well. So there is something I think called the spotlight effect, where we all always think we're the ones in the spotlight, and
Yeah,
people are always talking about us in particular, but really most people are concerned about themselves. So most people spend a lot of time thinking about themselves and only very little time thinking about like what's going
yes.
on, with my neighbor or cousin or aunt or sister, or I mean, we're just human that way, so we're interested in us first.
It's true that I think you've hit on another really important. I mean, you have been giving us tons of insights. I mean, by the Lord full, but here's another really critical insight that I think have hit upon. Um, that we mostly just like care about ourselves, even when we're gossiping about
Yes,
or thinking about
yes,
someone else. It's really us that we are really. I mean, I don't really, really care what's going on with that
right.
other person or family. But it's like what goes on with them and what I think about them is
Hmm.
actually a reflection of
Yeah,
what I
yes.
am worrying about for myself, how I
Hmm.
think and feel about myself. So what I'm talking about other people, it's more of a surface level thing. It really is a deeper reflection of my concern for me.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And this is something I had to remind myself of,
Mhm.
during chemotherapy when I lost my hair. And you know, uh, I had a wig, but I felt like it was really fake and everyone noticed, like everyone at the grocery store was thinking about my wig. Or if I went without and went with a scarf, like then I was like, oh, everybody knows I'm sick. Everyone's thinking about me being sick. And really, I had to think about it like if I saw someone out, I might think about that for half a second. And
Yeah.
then I'm like, oh, where's my grocery list? Or did I forget bread? Or whatever, or I'm late to pick up the kids. Or, it was always about like me and less about whoever. So I wasn't in the spotlight like I thought I was because, just people were not worried about it. So I think it's a good thing to keep in mind about anything. Like
Yeah.
people aren't like innately focused on you all the time. They're really, thinking about themselves for the vast majority, or what they have to do, or the
Yes.
next thing they need to do. Because that's what we all think about.
Yeah, and sometimes I do think that, we could do a better job of thinking a little bit more about other
Yeah,
people. I mean, from a
yes,
place of compassion and empathy, because
yes.
I know, now this is a different context again, but one of my cousin sisters, she lost her spouse. She became widowed. This was a few years back. And one of the experiences that she had in the aftermath of losing her spouse was um, that for a short period of time, she had a lot of people
Mhm.
paying attention to her, checking in with her about, how she was feeling, what was going on. But pretty soon that sort of went away, and she was, she felt alone and left by herself. And there was, she just in some ways felt abandoned by
Mhm.
the community. I mean, like, she had a lot of needs, a lot of help that she needed because she was a single mom now and so forth. And initially there was so much outpouring of like people checking in and this and that. But even though her needs didn't go away, she continued to need help
Yeah,
and support. A lot of the people's attention went away, because people just got busy with their own lives.
yeah,
And so sometimes we can do a little bit better of
yeah, yeah.
pointing other people in our care and concern.
Absolutely. And really that's the most important thing to do
Yeah.
because, I talk about it as like the pity and pivot, which
Mm.
is we give a lot of pity up front and then we just pivot back to our lives, pivot away from hard things because, we want to offer support and caring for someone who's grieving or someone who's going through cancer. But it's also like, it's uncomfortable for us because you sort of have to deal with, death, uh, illness. Those things are not something that most of us are comfortable, sitting with for any amount of time. But so many people reach out to me and they're like, what? My friend has cancer. My mother has cancer. My sister has cancer. Like, what can I do? I don't. I feel helpless. And I tell them like reaching out is just the most important thing you can do, and just asking, "How are you? Is there something you need help with that I can do? Can I pick up the kids? Can I cook dinner tonight for you?" And just really the "How are you?" And over a long period of time, because just like you're going through that grief, it doesn't last just a week
Yeah.
or 2 weeks. It lasts for, sometimes years. And it's the same for cancer treatment. My treatment was, almost a year and a half of, really feeling, tired and not myself. And, I needed a support system for that time. And grief also takes a long time, to deal with. So I would say for people not sure of what to do, set a timer, weekly. Hey, check in, just say, how are you doing? For the people that reached out to me over the, weeks and months, and often it was just, how are you doing? Like, I'm thinking of you. How are you doing? And
Yeah.
that real place of curiosity and not like, a judgment like, I hope you're going to the doctor, I hope you're getting the treatment, or I told you to get this treatment, it's really more of how are you doing, you know,
Yeah.
and then, is there anything I can do to help,
Yeah.
or even offer things because sometimes it feels like a burden to figure out what you need, so you can even think of, like, hey, I'm going to the grocery store. Do you need anything?
Yeah.
Happy to pick something up for you. Um, so just set a calendar in your set a reminder in your phone because we do get busy. It's not our fault that we don't remember. So just set that little regular reminder. I'm going to check in to see how they're doing. Or like when you go to the grocery store, I'm going to see if they need anything. Or I'll be in their neighborhood. Maybe they want me to drop something off or go to the pharmacy for them. I can do that. So I think that's the best thing we can do. To help us be more empathetic, because we get busy in our own lives and things that we have to do. So, setting that little reminder can help a lot with, you know, um, helping be a good support system for the people in our lives that need it.
Yeah. And it's like we may not be able to do this more enhanced level of caring for
Right.
everyone who's
Sure.
interested in our life, but maybe we
Yes.
can pick one or two people that
Yes,
we
of
can,
course.
do a little bit more for them. And so just,
Yeah.
improve your own capacity to be more caring and compassionate towards other people. You just made me think about there was this scene in this Indian drama I was watching just yesterday. Um, I will get into the backstory and so
Sure.
forth, but
Sure.
it has this like character, and he's a very wise man, and he was trying to
Sure.
teach this lady some good life lessons. And
Of
so
course.
he actually, and there's some little bit of like magic involved in the situation. So she's like, she finds a spot of gold, like literally a pot of gold, and
Oh,
there's
that sounds
magic
great.
involved, right?
Yeah.
And she's so excited, and she knows that it's because of this wise old person that she found this pot of gold. So initially she goes to him. She's like, thank you so much for helping me find this pot of gold, and I'm so grateful to you." And so he says to her, "You know what um I'll just give you one piece of advice. Since you're so grateful that you found this pot of gold, having followed my advice thus far." And he says, "I want you to take just a little portion of this gold and use it to help someone else."
Mhm.
And she has this like really strong reaction. She's like, "No, this is all mine. I'm not going to give this to anyone
Oh,
else."
no. That's so funny. That's so funny. But you know what's interesting too? I think everyone understands that, like that selfish, impulse to like keep it all. But psychology research says that there's something called a helper's high, which
Yeah,
means when you help, you feel good. When you
yeah,
help someone, you feel good. So actually, helping others benefits you too. So
yeah,
I would tell that to people who maybe don't want to reach out to anybody, that you're robbing them of the helper's high, because they want to help and they feel good. I mean, think about like when we do something good and
yeah.
we feel good, like, oh, I cooked dinner for her and she was sick, and look, I feel so good about myself.
Exactly, exactly. And so when we like allow ourselves to become a little bit less self-absorbed and a little
Yes,
bit more
yeah,
compassionate and helpful,
yeah.
we actually help ourselves.
Right, exactly. Because being selfish doesn't feel so good. Actually, I bet the next day she didn't feel so good about keeping all the gold. Like,
Well, this was a bit of a long story, but in the end, this was part of the lesson that he was trying to teach her and help
yeah,
her learn is, when you actually give, you receive also,
yes,
and you actually end up receiving more. So,
yes. It's so true. It's so true.
oh, Kara, I've been having so much fun
Yes.
with you and from you. And I'm looking at the time and I'm like, no. Wrap up for today.
Yeah.
Do you have any last thoughts you would like to share?
Yeah, I would just tell people to show themselves a lot of grace, and to show others a lot of grace too, because, when I was diagnosed, I was walking around in the world too, picking up my kids and going through the drive-through and in the grocery store. And, not all of us are on our best behavior all the time. And so I think you never know what someone is going through um, when they're out in the world, and people who are kind, in difficult moments. I remember I was crying in the car and driving through Starbucks, and the person in front of me bought my coffee. And I think they saw in the rearview mirror that I was upset. And it was just that little like, oh, someone saw me, someone helped. Um, they didn't know that I was dealing with breast cancer, but to me, I felt like seen. And so you never know when that little bit of kindness towards someone will make a big difference. So that's what I'll leave people with today.
Well, thank you. That it's such a wonderful reminder for us. And my last reminder is for our listeners, and it's just to make sure check the show notes because we will be dropping Kara's links in there. You can check out her book, and she's written many more books.
Yes.
Hola.
Yes.
Yeah, and until we connect next time, I just wish you lots and lots of peace and joy.
Oh, you too. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.